agenda. Every January we have a board organization meeting and a finance meeting. And so I'm going to go ahead and call to order the finance meeting for Northwestern School Corporation as required by Indiana law. Today's annual meeting is being held for the purposes prescribed under Indiana Code, including the election of the board's officers and the review of investment and financial reports. The first order of business is the election of the president of the Board of Finance. The president will preside over this meeting of the board, and I would open up the floor for any nominations for president of the Board of Finance.
I'd like to nominate Jonathan Eller.
I second it.
Any other further nominations? Hearing none, we will proceed to elect Jonathan Eller as president of the Board of Finance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Jonathan Eller is our new president, and I will hand over the remainder of the financial meeting to him.
Okay, we need a secretary for the Board of Finance. I'll open it up for nominations.
I'll nominate Kenny Ortman.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a nomination and a second. All in favor of Kenny Ortman as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got a secretary. We've got some reports that we are required to go through. So the fiscal indicators annual report.
The report's there for your review.
Okay.
All the things there.
Okay. So we have a fiscal indicators annual report, an annual investment report, and a policy 6144 report that are there for people to look at if they want to. So at this point, that's all the Board of Finance needs to do. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned for that part.
All right. And now I will call the reorganization meeting for the Board of School Trustees for Northwestern School Corporation to order. This meeting is held for the purpose of reorganizing the board for the coming year, including the election of officers as required by Indiana law and board policy. The first item of business is the election of the president of the board, and until a president is elected, I will preside over this portion of the meeting. At this time, I will open the floor for nominations for president.
I nominate Jonathan Underwood as president.
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, we will proceed to elect Jonathan Underwood as president of the Board of Finance. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. I will now turn the meeting over to Jonathan, who will preside over the meeting.
Thank you. Our next order is to hear a nomination for vice president, nomination for vice president of our board.
Make a motion for Jonathan Eller as vice president. Second.
Have our motion and second. Are there any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now looking for a nomination for secretary.
Nominate Kenny Ortman for secretary.
Second that.
Are there any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We now have an establishment of our board meeting dates and committee appointments. Might let
Can we
you
go through this?
Yeah, go ahead and do
Sure.
those all together.
Okay, so we have a number of committee assignments and that the board has individuals of the board have agreed to serve. So the first is the establishment of compensation for the board at $2,000 per year. An appointment of the corporation treasurer and assistant treasurer. For corporation treasurer, that would be Camden Parkhurst, and for assistant treasurers, Megan Reel and Lisa Wallace. We would like to continue with the appointment of John Becker with Church, Hiddle, and Antle as our school attorney. As legislative liaison, Mr. Dan Armstrong. For Curriculum and Technology Committee Representative, Jonathan Eller. Corporation Insurance Committee Representative, Ted Merrill. Strategic Planning Committee Representative, Kenny Ortman. Our designated newspaper for media advertisement is the Kokomo Tribune. The insurance trustees appointed to the Wabash Valley Insurance Trust are myself and Mr. Delroy Ortman, who is a teacher representative. The corporation compliance officers are appointed as Mike Goodrich, who is our athletic director, and Gina Moore, who is our director of special education, and Jonathan Eller as an appointment on the calendar committee. We also have a schedule of board meetings for the 2026 year that will be approved, and those meetings are typically held on the second Thursday of every month in the high school learning commons, which is here unless otherwise noted on the schedule, with the exception of July, which is held on the Monday after the Howard County 4-H Fair. Are there any questions?
All right, we need a motion for those presented items.
Make a motion to approve meeting dates, compensation, and board appointments.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, our board's now organized. We can go ahead and go to our regular board meeting. Mr. Merrill, you want to lead us in prayer?
I would be honored. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come together to carry out the business of the school. We just ask for your blessing upon each and every staff member, each and every student. Give us wisdom in the decisions that we make, and Father, grant us all safety to travel home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
There were a few changes after the agenda was published. One is for a contract service for educational assessment purposes, and that was the only change.
I need a motion for our agenda with that change.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Now need to get a motion for our minutes from last meeting.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. It's now time for public comment for our agenda items. Please state your name and address before making your comment, and it must be non-personnel in nature. Any public comments?
If you could speak into the microphone, yeah.
Yeah.
Allison Hillis, 800 North Hickory Lane. Looking at the schedule, the Howard County 4-H Fair is actually a week later this year, so your current date of July 13th is the Monday
It's the Monday
of the fair.
Okay, well,
So-
we did not.
Yep.
If we need, we will look at that and we'll make an amendment.
So
we can do
Just
that
in
at
case you
any
need
time,
to,
so-
but if
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, it doesn't
Well,
matter.
thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you for
making
letting
us
us know.
aware. I didn't realize it was a week later.
Good. Any others? Board comments. All right, our favorite part, our recognitions.
Yes, this is the fun part. So our first recognition this evening is for our superstar staff member of the month, and that is Mr. Jim Hunt. If you would come on up, Jim. Very with pride. So this month, Mr. Hunt is being recognized. He is one of our technology gurus and is all things network and network administration. I've lost track of time with Christmas break, but the Monday before New Year's, all of the power in this area went out, including up into Cass County. And it was very cold and very windy outside, and our generator at the corporation office did not kick on like it was supposed to due to the cold temperatures. And that necessitated a lot of quick thinking to get things taken care of since we did not have power. We had a battery backup and we were on a very limited time frame to get things shut down properly so we did not lose data. And Mr. Hunt, he had the week off and he was enjoying his breakfast and got the call. He came in and he worked, I don't know, probably till 7 or 8 that night. Yeah, it was very late. And every night that week he was here getting things put back in order. There was a little bit of a problem. He figured it out, and he made it work. And so I really appreciate that. It just is an example of the above and beyond the call of duty that he has for our school corporation, and I really appreciate that. And now he needs to take his time off that he well deserves. So thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. All right, next we have our Northwestern Elementary Student of the Month, and that is Brady Bennett. He is in 4th grade in Mrs. Gish's class, and Mrs. Gish and Mrs. Myers are here to say some really great things about you.
Good speech.
Right up front. Great. Wow. So this is Brady Bennett. He's in 4th grade in Mrs. Gish's class. And so I got to talk to him and find out some of his favorite things. And I asked him what his favorite thing about school was. And I love this. Right, like without hesitation, how everyone is nice to each other. And he has lots of good friends and everybody are good friends. And I love that because that's what we want at school, kindness and respect. And so then we talked about that because I said, what do you think, why do you think you were chosen for Student of the Month? And he said, being kind and respectful and listening. And I said, well, what does respectful mean? Like, we hear that all the time, but what does that mean? And he said, being nice to everyone, being nice to others and just respecting them, even if, we talked about if they're your friends or whatever, it doesn't matter. You respect people and you're kind. And so again, that's exactly why he's Student of the Month. I asked him what he would do if he was principal for the day. And he said, make a big prize chart and then help do some donations so that we could do that for other people. So that was a super cool idea. And I said, what do you think we do? Like, if you were the principal, what do you think we do? And he said, I don't know, maybe do some meetings and make school a better place. I'm like, yeah, I like it. So I asked him what advice would he give to others, and he said, no matter if you're big or small, you still matter to everybody. And some of his favorite hobbies were football. He loves football, and then spending time with his family and friends. So it was wonderful to talk to him again. He's all of the things. So I'm going to let Mrs. Gish talk about him a little bit as well.
I'm not sure how I top that, but I'm going to share what I see in the classroom every single day. This time, when it was time to choose a 4th grade Student of the Month, I right away knew who I wanted to nominate from my classroom. And when we talked as a 4th grade team, I was able to share why, and they all agreed, hands down. So when selecting a student for this honor, the Northwestern way, be excellent and be kind, is the criteria. That's what we always think of. So when I think of Brady, and what I see every day is that he's hardworking. He is kind to others and not just his friends. He has a deep respect for every student in my classroom, and he has a deep respect from every student in my classroom, which says a lot. He is helpful to his peers. My third point is that I have students who seek him out. So after instruction time, if they still aren't certain and we're doing partner work or we're doing group work, students who may not understand a concept know it's a safe place to ask Brady because he will explain. There's never any hoity-toity or I know this and you don't. It's all about I'm going to help you get there. And Brady often also seeks out ways to help others academically. And then my last point is he just honestly has a genuine love for learning. He approaches new topics with curiosity and enthusiasm, inspiring his peers and myself as well. In our classroom, we always say you always need to question and you always need to wonder because that's how you learn. He has taken this to a whole new level. Whenever we have free time, he never asks, what can I do? Which is the ultimate no question. So he takes it upon himself. He has researched France and Spain and Germany, all of these European countries, because he wants to know more about them. And then he makes a Google Doc and he shares it with the class. And they love learning what the favorite foods are, what the rivers are, what the cities are. I have learned some unique and amazing things. So his love for learning is another thing that has just made him stand out head and shoulders above. I'm super proud of him. He is a joy to have in class. Congratulations, Brady. Well done.
Well done. Who did you bring with you tonight? Who's here with you? My parents, my brother, and my grandma and grandpa. Okay. We're so glad. Thank you. These are wonderful.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have our Howard Elementary Student of the Month, and that is Miss Emma Hatfield. She is in preschool, and Miss Clark is her teacher.
Do you want to tell everyone who's here with you? Yeah. Who's here with you tonight? Do you have anybody else here? Yeah. Some sisters too? Yeah.
Yeah. So Emma and I got to hang out for a little bit today, specifically in my office, because I try to pop into her room quite often because preschool is just like an awesome place to be. We talked about school, outside of school, things about her. She said like her favorite thing at school is to play with friends. She loves to play with the balls in the gym. Her favorite center is the sensory bin and trains. I asked her what makes her happy at school, and she said her friends. Asked her what she's worked hard to learn this year, and she said her letters, but then did B, ball, but. So you can tell they're working on some OG to get ready for kindergarten. Her favorite book is a turtle book with sparkles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She said it's just got a lot of turtles in it. What she likes about her teacher is that Miss Clark helps them learn. Her favorite thing about Howard is the people here. I asked her what she does to help friends that, like if they're sad, and she said gives them hugs. I asked her what she thinks it means to be kind, and she said to be nice to everybody. Outside of school, she likes to play with her sister. She's worked hard on cleaning her room every now and then, maybe. Yeah. Then we talked about just things that she liked. I asked if she could be an animal, what would she be? And instantly she said cats, because she likes cats. If she had a superpower, she would be able to create ice, because she likes ice and snow. Her favorite food is ramen noodles and chocolate milk. Favorite color is pink. I asked her what is something that's just like cool about her, and she pointed to her pants and were like, these. But I like am gonna let Miss Clark talk a little bit about why she's Student of the Month. But like Emma is that kid that like when you're around her, like good days become great, and like days that are hard, she makes them better. Like when I need like a reminder of why we do what we do, she's one of the kids that brings that back to you. But I'll let Miss Clark talk.
So I have had the pleasure of being Emma's teacher for 2 years, and from the very beginning, she has always been very energetic and happy to be at school. She's hardworking. She is considerate of her classmates. She also never gives up. She's not a student that I ever hear no from or I can't do that. She just goes full force at anything and is willing to try. But ultimately, the reason why I chose her is her heart. Sometimes it's hard to remember who has had a turn and who hasn't had a turn. And Emma is a student who, instead of saying like, oh, I haven't had a turn, she is always like, oh, Miss Clark, so-and-so hasn't had a turn yet. And she advocates for her peers all the time. But also whenever someone is having a rough day, Emma is the student that I send them to. I'll just say, hey, why don't you go and see if Emma can play with you? And Emma, I'll watch them walk straight over to Emma, and she's immediately like, oh yeah, okay, let's do this. And she grabs their hand, and she just welcomes them with open arms no matter what. So Emma has been a total pleasure to have in class. She's a very sweet girl.
All right. Well, our Northwestern Middle School Student of the Month has a basketball game tonight, so she is not able to be here. We will recognize her next month. But our Northwestern High School Student of the Month is here, and that is Jana Hillis, and she is a senior. And you had many nominations from your teachers. I will turn it over to them to talk about all the great things that you represent.
All right, Jana Hillis is a January Student of the Month for Northwestern High School. Can you tell us who you brought?
I brought my parents, my sister, and my Nana, and my grandma.
Fantastic. What do you think has been your biggest challenge in high school so far?
Freshman year, I struggled with energy a lot because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 6th grade, so I had to adjust to high school. And honestly, waking up in the morning was kind of hard, but I've been able to adjust and get to school as much as I can.
She's done more than adjust. She has been a big part of Northwestern High School and mentoring other kids and everything else. I'm going to let the teacher talk about that in a little bit. But can you tell us a little bit about one experience at Northwestern that's going to kind of stay with you?
Being drum major my senior year was a really big experience. I got to know a lot of kids here that I wouldn't have known otherwise, and I also got to know a lot of kids from other schools, and yeah.
Very good. Can you tell us about a teacher that's made a big impact on you at the high school?
She retired after my sophomore year, but it was Mrs. Wilson who taught chemistry. She really just encouraged me to go out and take those hard classes that I wasn't sure about.
Heard that a lot about her.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your plans for after high school?
I plan on attending either Purdue or Huntington University to major in animal science.
That's fantastic. If you could give younger kids, I know we don't have middle school here, but if you could give younger kids any advice for high school, what would it be?
Don't be scared. Even if it's a speech or just a test, don't be scared to try something new, like a new sport or extracurricular. Just go out there and be yourself.
Okay. Now, we do have a different process at the high school. Teachers nominate the students, and an email was sent out. Oh yeah, I'm going to call you out. An email was sent out to nominate people, and somebody accidentally hit reply all.
I'm very tech savvy.
And that's why she's here, because she was asked to come because she hit reply all. And but the interesting part was multiple teachers then started saying, oh my gosh, yes, oh my gosh, she does this. She meets with kids who are younger and helps them, and just all these wonderful things that you would want to hear as a parent.
You stole my speech. I can go home.
No, you got more than that. So I'm going to turn it over and let Callie talk a little bit about it.
Okay. So yes, I'm very tech savvy, and I hit reply all instead of just replying to Mrs. Nelson. But I was really embarrassed in the beginning, and then I was almost just like amazed because I had teacher after teacher after teacher after teacher just, Jana's amazing, Jana's the best, like she's so great. And like what opened my eyes the most, because I know that you're amazing and I know that you work hard and I know that you're a leader, but it was like so many different areas that you succeeded in and that you impacted people in, like FFA or band or distinguished young women, and like just people, or like Mr. Ortman, who I feel like, you know, like some people are like, oh, Mr. Ortman doesn't, you know, always like everybody, but like he was like, yeah, Jana, but like, you know, like it was just all these areas of people were like, you know, like so many walks of life, and I was just so like, man, how rare is it to find somebody who can spread themselves out throughout so many like things, or like even like the Walkers love you, and they like, you know, that's someone she shows 4-H for, and I'm just like, she does so much, and like can still leave this lasting impression on everybody that she works with. And I think it's really rare because like as adults, we probably all do too much sometimes. And like how often are we leaving an impact every time like we spread ourselves out so wide? So I don't have to say a lot. Like, you're amazing. She's such a leader. Like, if I have, like, she's in a class with freshmen, and if there's a freshman student who, like, maybe just needs that extra push, like, Dana might, like, have words about it after her, but, like, to that student, like, she's so willing to work with them and help and push them and, like, make sure that we're all learning together. And, you know, she's willing to step up and do uncomfortable things. And I think that's amazing. I'm so, like, just lucky that we met this year.
I will say that Mr. Ortman, it's not this Mr. Ortman.
Oh, yeah.
But he does like other people. I'm going to put that out.
I've always wanted to like everybody.
People.
I will say that the second person that responded was Mr. Snyder. And he had this, he was at church doing practice for Sunday. So he wanted to say this. I recommended Jana for Student of the Month because, quite frankly, I thought the qualities that the committee was looking for, leadership, kindness, and integrity, are at the very core of Jana as a person. Her drive for success, both for her peers and within herself, allowed Jana, as a drum major in Northwestern Band, to achieve a third-place finish in this year's ISMA State Finals in Lucas Oil Stadium. Jana is also an excellent flute player and is incredibly well respected by the members of the band, and I would say by everybody at the high school. So, on behalf of Mrs. Brown and the school board, congratulations.
Thank you.
For what it's worth, I like Jana, and I think she's a good.
Not this Mr. Ortman. I was like, it was not Kenny.
Watch
Any others?
No, that's all for this month. Yep.
All right. At this time, if you could join Mr. Schoaf he's going to get everybody's picture that's a student of the month, and also want to congratulate our parents and families as well in sharing your student success and all you do for our school. So if you get to join him, and if you'd like, you can join us for the rest of the board meeting afterwards.
Or you can just take off.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Nobody stays.
Yeah.
You. Thanks for saving us in July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You will be at the fair. All right.
You can go ahead
Ready to
whenever
go?
you're ready.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, for my update this month, I have just a couple of things. The first is it is School Board Appreciation Month. And so I did just want to speak very plainly that Northwestern School Corporation has an amazing school board. Each member has incredible integrity and is very dedicated to the betterment of the school corporation. They have kids first at their heart, and so I would like to just publicly state how much I appreciate working with you and the trust that you put in our team. The food items that you have on your table are courtesy of Mr. Cassidy and Chartwells, and then you have a few other little gifts on your table just to say thank you for putting in the time and effort. It is not a well compensated position, and even when the work is difficult, you all are very much appreciated, and couldn't do this work without you. So thank you very much. In addition to that, we are post Christmas, and our construction project is so close to being completed. There's just a few more items on the list. I did want to share a few pictures when we got back from break at the high school. I remember touring the building in May for the very first time with Mrs. Bilkey, and all of these classrooms that you see here were dirt floors. They had busted the concrete up, and it was not very impressive to look at. And now we have kids in those classrooms, the new computer lab and the FFA Ag Wing. It looks beautiful. Also, you'll see in the choir hallway, we have some new ceilings up that look very professional and very modern. They're almost done with the main hallway ceiling. We'll get there. But it's coming along, and it's just really exciting to see and to get teachers and kids into their new classrooms. They're excited to be in those classrooms. So I did want to share that. And then the last thing I wanted to share was just a thank you to Mr. Miller and his team. So later on in our action items, you will see a recommendation for a policy. And that policy is, it's another AI policy, but it was created by a team of administrators and teachers from each of the buildings in our district. They worked with a five-star consultant to create what are the parameters? What do we want as teachers our AI use in the building to look like? We want to be responsible, we want to be creative, but we also want to set high expectations for our children. And so I just want to thank him and the efforts that he took in leading that team and putting that policy together for our consideration and for the district in the future, because these it's not going to go away, and it's a kind of a brave new world in terms of technology. And so they have really embraced that, and I just appreciate their work in that regard. So that is all I have for this month's updates.
All right. Ready for CFO reports? Or no, the wind turbine.
Yep, we've got the wind turbine back in action.
Yep. So I put in there our December production, and then I also included just some general snapshots for the year. 2025 was a fairly good year for us, better than 24-23. The turbine is still producing. We are still getting advantages of those energy savings as well. So again, just wanted to kind of update the board on a yearly snapshot where we're at.
That'll buy you a lot of board members.
What's that?
Yeah. That buys you a lot of board members.
I appreciate the historical numbers there too. They were compiled those. That's good to see that it's still cash flowing over time, and good information to have. And so we look in the future, whatever that is we have to figure out what we're going to do with it and renew what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Good to know. So
yep, we will certainly keep tracking that.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Now we're ready for CFO reports.
CFO reports. Well, I will speak on behalf of Camden. It has been an extremely busy time for Camden and his team. We have our state auditors here, and they've been here before Christmas. They're still here in our buildings. And so your CFO report this month is really just an appropriations report. You'll see that in our education fund, we actually decreased the percentage that we've expended because of the additional appropriation that was approved prior to this. But we are within our budget. We have a few more things that will be encumbered out of that to close out the year. In our operations fund, we've spent about 84% of that budget and still have a few things that will come out, but we're doing very well in terms of budgeting our resources for this month. And so at the end of this session, we'll have an open work session where Luke Brueggemann from Stiefel will come in, and he will also give some additional information about forecasting over the next 3 to 5 years and what that will look like for Northwestern School Corporation. So lots of good information coming your way tonight.
Okay. Need a motion for the presented CFO report.
Make a motion to approve CFO reports as presented.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Move on to some claims.
Okay. Accounts payable claims for the month since our last board meeting total $3,882,823.28, and those claims are presented in your packet for approval.
Need a motion to approve the presented claims.
Make a motion to approve the AP claims as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Payroll.
Okay, we've had 2 payroll claims since our last board meeting, and that totals $1,065,762.59 for your consideration and approval.
Need a motion for the payroll claims.
Make a motion to approve the payroll claims as presented.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll do our personnel items consent.
Okay, so this month we have just a few recommendations. First is a resignation from J.C. Mitchell, who is a high school special education instructional assistant. We are also asking to hire Elijah Gibson, who will be a middle school special education instructional assistant, and Elizabeth Brown at the middle school as an instructional assistant as well. And those are replacing individuals who the positions were vacant. So these are not new positions that we're creating. We also have 2 student teachers who will be joining us this next semester. Katie Owsley from Indiana Wesleyan University, and she will be with Mr. Snyder and Mrs. Simmons for music. And then Faith Brown from Indiana Wesleyan University as well, and she will be splitting her time between the high school and Howard Elementary. Also some just a few extracurricular and coaching assignments as presented in your packet.
All right, need a motion for our personnel items.
Make a motion we approve personnel items as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Foreign exchange student edition.
We are asking to approve and accept 2 Chilean students to our enrollment for second semester. And this is through Mrs. Whaley's program. We appreciate her working with our school corporation and getting these students placed in families so that they can have an experience that is unique. And so we would just ask that you would approve their enrollment for second semester at the high school.
I need a motion to approve the foreign exchange student additions.
Make a motion to approve the new flag students as presented.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Then we're doing our new policy.
Yes. So the policy is presented in your packet. We're asking that this would be approved on a first reading. Since it does not contain any legal parameters in the policy, and it would just contain artificial intelligence protocols for use in the classroom, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and how teachers would go about using artificial intelligence throughout the curriculum. And so, again, just thank the team that put the work in to make that happen and put together what their ideas are and what they support and don't support in terms of technology, really embracing and being very forward thinking in terms of how that technology impacts our students. And so I would ask for your approval.
Is the idea when I'm guessing Neola is going to have an AI policy eventually?
They do. So we already have 3 artificial intelligence policies that impact our student acceptable use, our staff acceptable use, and what are legally prohibited terms. So this is actually going to be that policy, like 0.04. It'll be the 4th iteration, and really this is just very relevant to how we will utilize AI in our classrooms, as opposed to the legality of using AI.
Okay.
I appreciated, I started reading and I was like, how often are we going to look at this? And I was pleased to see review that at least once a year and if not more.
Yes.
So that's going to have to be done.
All right, we need a motion on the new policy.
Make a motion to approve the policy edition on first reading and waive the second reading.
With that,
Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Outstanding checks.
Every year, we have a policy that allows for the board to void any outstanding checks that are greater than 2 years old. And so we have a number of checks that total $4,280.69 that will be rolling off our books if you approve that we are able to void those off of our books.
A donation from Mr. Layden in there.
There was one in there?
Yeah.
That was most of the 4,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Was it this year? Was there one in there this time?
What happened?
Enough last time, yeah. There was left.
I know.
Thank your teachers.
I
2022.
tell you, I don't
You
know.
lost in the mail.
$15.92.
I could not tell you.
James Bisher's got one too, isn't he?
All right.
So you're not alone. All right,
Most
need
of
a,
them
My
are
wife
for
out to dinner.
nominal amount.
yeah.
Those are
Those are 200 plus.
$2,000 for
Yes,
that.
$1,000. All right, need a motion for our to void our outstanding checks.
I make a motion to void outstanding checks as submitted and personally thank Mr. Layden for letting us take
We
some
need
money
a
back.
policy
Make
to
sure you put that
notify
as a
staff
minute.
members that this is going to happen in the future. It's like the third time this has happened.
I'll second.
Great.
All right, any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Too
Motion
late,
passes.
you're not getting it back.
Yeah. Donations.
We have a number of very generous donations this month. The first is from Integrity Family Counseling, and that is for our robotics program for $500. We have another robotics donation for $1,000 from Susan Williams. We have a $1,500 donation to athletics from NYO Football. And then Gary and Terry Mills, a donation of $500 to our food service accounts. And we have sent thank you notes to all of those individuals and appreciate their support of our students and our programs.
Very nice.
Yeah. Need a motion to accept the donations.
I'll make a motion, we approve these donations.
I'll second that.
Got our motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Varsity softball lock-in.
You have a couple of recommendations, one from Mike Goodrich, our athletic director, and another from Coach Chris Walker for varsity softball, requesting to use our field house on March 6th through the night into March 7th for a softball lock-in for team building and connecting.
All right, need a motion for the softball lock-in.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to hold a Northwestern varsity softball lock-in as presented.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
It's been going on for years, so this is not, I mean, they've been doing it for a long, since Coach Walker's been there, they've been doing that, so.
Very cool.
Any others? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Uniform conflict of interest statements.
Okay, every year we are required by law to disclose if there are any party relationships that could pose a conflict of interest. And so those are presented in your packet. We have Lisa Wallace, Dan Armstrong, Jonathan Eller, Ted Merrill, Kathy Layden, Jeff Layden, James Gish, Jonathan Underwood, Megan Reel, and Tim Schoaf, who all have disclosed that relationship. And we will submit that once those are approved into Gateway.
You need a motion to approve the conflict of interest statements.
I make a motion, we approve the conflict of interest statements.
I'll second.
Got our motion second. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're ready for to receive bids for roofing.
Okay. Mr. Layden has given several documents to you in your packets requesting that we get bids for specific roofs from Moisture Management. You want to?
So just requesting to start advertising this project. Looking at 2 roofs at NES, 1 roof at the high school as base bids, and then 1 roof at NES and 2 at the high school as alternate bids. Remaining funds that were left over from the construction project to fund the project.
Okay.
Oh, and I do have one other, sorry. The big deal that I just heard from Moisture Management today. I put in your packet that the bid opening on February 17th. It is actually February 18th. So I just wanted to note that. It will be in the advertisement.
Any questions? All right, we need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the request to advertise and receive bids on the summer 2026 roofing project.
Any discussion?
There's pretty much what you showed us last meeting, correct?
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we have overnight trip requests.
Okay. We have a request from sponsor Craig Williams for Cybertooth Robotics to have 3 overnight field trips, all for competitions around Indiana. One is on March 6th through the 8th, one on April 2nd through the 4th, and one on April 17th through the 19th for your consideration.
All right, we need a motion for the overnight trip request.
Make a motion, we approve the overnight trip request as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we're on our last item, the educational assessment service.
Yes, this is a limited contract with Indiana Behavior Analysis Academy, and it is for assessment services for an individual student, not to exceed $3,000, and we would just ask for your approval of that contract.
Need a motion to approve the presented contract.
Make a motion to approve the contract as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now ready for public comments for non-agenda items. Are there any public comments? Board comments? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Now we'll enter into our public work session with Cecil. So whenever you are ready.
Ready now?
Actually, we will go ahead. Chelsea does not need to stay for this. So if anybody else wants to leave or not stay for the work session, you are welcome to dismiss at this time.
Can I go ahead and have them sign the documents real quick?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. And then Luke, I don't know if you need to have anything prepared. I do have your slides up here, so.
That's perfect.
Okay.
We have them sit here, is that okay?
Yeah. Would you be the director for? Well,
You want to sit over here?
Yes. This is for IBAA, yeah.
He said everything. We'll have the mic too, so.
Actually, I don't know, maybe Gina should sign it, but.
Probably staying over here.
Referee.
Yeah, it could probably be either of us. But that's fine.
Here, clicker. Lindsay have that? Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Oh, did I steal your seat? Here. Yeah. I'll just have to.
A light night.
Yeah.
Just got my pen warmed up.
Did you get everything signed already, Chelsea? Oh, perfect. Okay. On to you, Luke.
All right. Full House talked about Senate Enrolled Act 1. I love it. So a lot of you probably heard there's a major property tax reform that happened. You probably heard some of this through ICPA or IEPSS or maybe from Camden and Lindsay, just that the property tax structure in Indiana has changed really entirely, and also with local income tax in Indiana. And this all happened, Senate Enrolled Act 1 in this last session. So we're in the short session right now in the General Assembly. This happened in May of 2025. And really, it has a lot of impacts on schools. So we're going to walk through kind of what the implications are to schools, how it impacts Northwestern. The good news is that some of these things impact you, some of these things may not impact you, and they may impact some of your peers. So if you are talking to maybe family that's in a different district, or peers or colleagues that are in a different district, just know that this impacts you completely different than it does even your neighboring school district. And I work with most of the other schools in Howard County, and it really does impact each school vastly different. The other thing I'll say is that a lot of this is getting phased in over time. So it's not that all of this is starting in 2026. Sometimes the first phase of it is starting in 26, but really gets phased in through 2031. So please stop me at any point with questions. This is just kind of an overview of SCA 1 and what it means for you guys. So before I dive into SCA 1, I kind of want to talk about the relationship of net assessed value and tax rate to your levy or the revenue that you bring in. And I'll kind of explain why that's important here in a little bit. And really, it's because net assessed value is going to change dramatically over time. But net assessed value is different than gross assessed value. Gross assessed value is essentially the market value of your house. So if your home is worth $200,000, then you have your standard deduction and supplemental deduction. Once you take those away, that's your net assessed value. And that's what you're getting taxed on. That's what your tax rate is applied to, is your net assessed value. So it's after all of the deductions. So if you have to get to the levy or revenue that you generate as a school district in your operations fund and debt service, it is your net assessed value, so the tax base of your school corporation times the tax rate equals the levy or revenue. So if your tax base was $1 million and you had a $1 tax rate, that means that you are going to generate $10 million in levy or revenue. And that's going to be between the operations fund and debt service fund. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, what's happened is really post-COVID, we saw home prices increase quite a bit. So gross assessed value went up, net assessed value went up. So when that happened, net assessed value would increase to, in this example, $1.1 billion. You still maintain your dollar tax rate. Now your levy or revenue is $11 million. So you're bringing in more dollars. And that's, again, keep up with inflation and your operations fund and other needs that come up. That's what most schools did. I think everyone kind of focused on the tax rate, not necessarily the levy or revenue that you're bringing in. Most schools statewide, and really municipal entities statewide, focused on tax rate. If you wanted to get that same $10 million levy, but your assessed value increased to that 1.1, you'd really only need a 91-cent tax rate to get that same $10 million in levy or revenue. Because of Senate Enrolled Act 1, over time, your net assessed value is going to shrink. And the reason is
for that, and we'll talk about it here in a second in more detail, is the deductions are increasing for homeowners and 2% properties. So the pie that you're able to tax upon is shrinking. So if it's going from $1 billion to 800 million, now to generate that same $10 million in revenue that you're bringing in, your tax rate is going to have to go up to $1.25. And this is just an example, not specific to Northwestern. But keep this in mind as we talk about this. And just because the tax rate goes up doesn't necessarily mean that the taxpayer is any worse off or better off, because now they're getting taxed on a lower value home. And that's where the complicated math kind of gets into everything. So if you want to flip to the next page, I realize it's a lot of bullet points here, but these are kind of the main things that impact Northwestern from Senate and Rolled Act 1. The first thing is if a school corporation has a debt service rate over 70 cents, any new project has to go to referendum. Whether it's a $500,000 bus purchase or a $100 million new high school, it has to go to referendum. Right now, your debt service rate's at about 48, 49 cents. So not an immediate concern. You're well under that 70-cent threshold. But if you think back to that prior chart, if your net assessed value is going up, if your payments stay the exact same, your tax rate is going to increase. So it's not an immediate concern, but it is going to have an impact, and it's likely going to increase going forward. So the assessed value changes, and this is what kind of drove that prior page. You have three different property classes. Your first one is your homesteads, your 1% property tax, or your 1% property tax caps. So right now, a homeowner gets a $48,000 standard deduction and a supplemental deduction of 37.5%. As this gets phased in, the homeowner standard deduction is going to go from $48,000 down to zero, and then increase the supplemental from 37.5% to 67%. So for a $250,000 home, that results in almost a 35% decrease in their net assessed value. This is going to start in 2026 and get phased in through 2031. So it's not that it's going to decrease your net assessed value 35% overnight, but it is going to have that effect over time. So again, for a $250,000 home, if their market value or gross assessed value does not change from 26 to 2031 or 25 to 2031, their net assessed value, the part that's able to be taxed, decreases 35%. So if your tax base was made up entirely of $250,000 homes, your tax base shrinks 35%. Now, that doesn't account for any growth that you could see or trending like we've seen the last couple of years in home prices. You know, I think post-COVID, everyone saw their home prices increase. Some years 5%, some years 10, 15, 20%. So of course, there still could be some of that. We've started to see the market level off a little bit, where you're not seeing that huge jump that you saw post-COVID. So that's absolutely possible that could offset some of that decrease. Your second property tax class is farmland and 2% properties. So that's your apartments, your rentals, your farmland, senior living communities. They've never had a deduction in the past. So their gross assessed value was equivalent to their net assessed value. Starting in 26 through 2031, they're going to see an increase in their deductions from 0% to 33.4%. So same thing as for homeowners as it is for these 2% properties. Now they're essentially being taxed on 2/3 of their property because they're getting that 1/3 deduction. So homeowners are being taxed on 1/3 of what their actual value is. 2% properties are being taxed on 2/3 of their actual assessed value. Your last one is commercial. So they did not make any deduction changes to the 3% property tax caps, your commercials. But what they did do was they removed the 30% depreciation floor for business personal property tax for anything that was placed into service after January 1, 2025. So really what that means, you think about farmer has a combine, or some of your large businesses may have a lot of machinery or equipment. That's what business personal property is. It's equipment. Right now there's a depreciation table, and after I think it's 4 years, it stops at 30%. You hit that 30% depreciation floor, you're always going to be taxed on at least 30%. For new business personal property, that 30% goes away. So by year, I think it's 7, it goes down to 0. So if you have a piece of equipment that lasts 10, 15 years, you're not going to be able to tax after really that 7 years once it fully depreciates. So again, just kind of shrinking that net assessed value pie. All of these things, again, if you're shrinking that pie to generate the same revenue or the same levy that you're bringing in on a annual basis, you have to increase your tax rate. And that just goes back to that chart that we showed previously. That does not mean that the taxpayer is going to pay more. And I think that's the tricky part. That's going to be the part from a communication standpoint that the board, administration, every school in the state of Indiana has always managed to a tax rate. Now, most schools are not managing to a tax rate anymore because it's going to be nearly impossible to keep that same tax rate with a declining tax base. If you wanted to maintain that same tax base, again, go back to the example, if your entire tax base was made up of $250,000 homes and there's no increasing, that means if you want to keep the same tax rate, but your net assessed value is decreasing by 35%, well, that means you're taking a 35% cut in revenue to maintain the same tax rate. I don't want to speak for Lindsay and Camden, but I'm going to assume a 35% revenue cut isn't possible to maintain the programming and the staffing that you need. So I'll show here in a couple of slides what it actually means to a taxpayer. But this is probably the biggest impact of SEA1. So let me pause there. Any questions or comments? Riveting stuff, I know.
So you say it phases in through 2031. Is that a straight line phase in, or is it?
Yeah, if you actually click to the next slide, well, one more slide actually. All right, so I think this will answer your question. 2025, the average home in your district, according to the most recent Census Bureau data, was $200,900. Right now in 25, they get that standard deduction of $48,000, supplemental deduction of 37.5%. Their net assessed value on a $200,000 home is $95,000 and some change. 26, standard deduction stays the same, but now supplemental goes up. There's your net assessed value. So then that standard deduction starts to decrease, supplemental starts to increase, net assessed value starts to decrease. So it's not perfectly straight, but pretty much kind of gets you to that point. And ultimately, again, now you're getting a deduction on 2/3 of your property, so you're getting taxed on 1/3 of what that assessed value is. Next thing we have here, the operations fund. I think you all know it's capped by the state, what we call the max levy growth quotient, or the MLGQ. Maybe you've heard me or Camden mention that. It's bounced around between 3.5% to 5% since it was implemented in 2019. It's capped at 4% in 2026. So we know that's what it is going to be in 26. We don't know what it's going to be in 27. We're waiting on the short session for them to tell us that. There's been a ton of conversation about the operations fund and bills that have been introduced to that effect. Whether that should be a county-wide max levy growth quotient, whether that should be tied to ADM, whether that should be a flat rate for all schools. I mean, there's been a lot of different things introduced. This is something that we could see go a variety of different ways depending on what the General Assembly wants to do. So we're kind of in wait and see mode on what future revenue is going to be for that fund, or how much you're going to be allowed to grow that by, which makes it a little difficult from a planning perspective when you don't know what revenue you're going to be able to bring in the next year. Because we know in the operations fund, we talked about this when we did the last GO bond, utility costs are increasing, property and casualty insurance has skyrocketed, bus purchases, technology, all the stuff that you used to pay for out of operations has increased a lot. and a lot more than that 4% rate. So if expenses are going well beyond that 4% rate, but you're only able to bring in additional 4% revenue, something's got to give. And it's either pushing some of that stuff like we done this last GO bond to debt service. Well, we'll get to some of the options here and kind of at the end, but you kind of see the conundrum there. If your revenue's capped, but your expenses are well exceeding that. I don't think you guys have any charters in your area. Is that accurate? Okay. So I'll skip over that. If you do, if something comes up, potentially have to start sharing property tax dollars, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So one of the bigger things that came up, and I think at first we were like, this doesn't seem to be that big of an issue, but homeowners receive, beginning in 2026, a credit on their tax bill. And the credit is equivalent to the lesser of 10% of their tax bill, or $300. So if you have a $2,000 tax bill, it's going to be a $200 reduction. If it's a $4,000 tax bill, you're capped at that $300. So we started thinking of it. First, we're like, well, it's great for homeowners that everyone starts to see a little bit reduction. We know property taxes have went up statewide. But then we started thinking, well, there's a lot of parcels, a lot of homesteads in a school district. You multiply that by 300 or 200, whatever it is, that starts to be a pretty sizable number. And then where does that loss come from? So the DOGF, or the Department of Local Government Finance, estimates that to be $250,000 beginning in 2026. Right now, the way it was written was that will be spread out proportionally between your operations fund and your debt service fund. There is some belief that there will likely be a change to protect debt service, and then you will take all of the hit in operations. The reason behind that is that if you have a $125,000 loss in debt service, and you start compounding that, and you're not allowed to levy for that loss, well, eventually you run out of cash to make your debt payments. If you start running out to make your debt payments, well, then the state has to step in to make your debt payments. You worry about bond default, a lot of things that would put a kind of a black eye on the state for doing that. So there's some belief that they will protect the debt service fund, which is great from that perspective, from the bondholder's perspective. However, then it shifts all of the burden to your operations fund. So we know that operations fund is already tight because of those increasing costs and the capped revenue. And then you throw in a loss of $250,000. And that's not just in 26, that's in 26 every year going forward. And so this is probably the biggest impact to your revenue from this bill. This is going to change the communication, the assessed value, because we're going to have to talk maybe more about levy or revenue or taxpayer impact versus just tax rate. This is to be determined. This has a direct impact on your operations fund revenue, and trying to come up with a strategy of how do we replace potentially $250,000 in lost revenue. Some of that may be offset by a shift with who's paying the tax burden and reduction in traditional circuit breaker loss. Some of that just needs to play out. But likely you're going to need to find a way of how do we make those expense cuts or shift expenses out to offset that revenue loss.
Luke, I have a quick question. So
yes.
For the credits where we will have the loss, the $250,000 is for our municipality. How is that spread out amongst all of the municipalities in the county? Is it an equal proportionate share of loss?
Yeah, so it's basically your portion of that taxpayer's bill.
Okay.
So if a taxpayer is $250 and your tax rate's $1.25 and they get a $300 credit, $150 goes to you and the other half goes to however it's split up between the library, county,
all
township.
The municipalities are sharing the burden of the credit
Correct.
loss. Yeah.
But schools typically have the largest property tax rate because cities, towns, counties have other revenue sources that they can bring in. They have local income tax, they have utility revenue, TIF revenue. Schools have property tax revenue and state funding. That's two sources. Any other questions on that? Last thing is local income tax change, and this is something that could change this session. This is something that they're looking at. There's kind of two parts to local income tax as it relates to schools. One is your county receives a local income tax, essentially when you guys go to pay your taxes, or you get your paycheck, a portion of that goes to the county. And in certain counties, the county collects that and then redistributes it to municipalities. So some schools actually receive hundreds of thousands of dollars from the county, and they deposit that into their education or operations fund. You guys don't receive that portion. What your taxpayers receive is what we call the property tax replacement credit, or the PTRC. And this expires in 2028. And essentially what it is you pay a portion of in your paycheck, a portion of that local income tax, or that tax out of your paycheck goes to the county. The county collects it, and then they pass that out to the different municipalities throughout the district. It's about 20% for Howard County. So once that goes away, if you are a homeowner and let's say that your property tax bill is $1,000 and you have a 20% PTRC that is coming from the county, you pay $800, $200 comes from the county. Well, if that goes away in 2028, you still owe $1,000. You don't have the PTRC. So now instead of paying $800, you pay $1,000. So you actually see a $200 increase in that instance. If you're already at the tax caps, if you're at that 1% tax cap, you're not going to pay any more because you can't constitutionally pay any more than that 1%. So for example, if your home is $100,000, you can't pay more than that 1%, so $1,000. If you're currently paying $1,000, you're paying $1,000, where municipalities are actually receiving that PTRC, those PTRC dollars. They're going to start losing that. So this could have an effect on your operations fund revenue, but more than likely, your homeowners that are not at their caps, they're going to see their bill increase. Feel like you have a question or you look confused there?
No, it's just robbing Peter to pay Paul in essence. In reality, they're cutting it one place, but they're taking it away in the other. Why'd they do that?
Infinite wisdom.
Great question. I think, say this correct here. I think they knew that there were some things that needed to be worked out and corrections that need to be made that will likely get changed in this session and future sessions before it hits in 2028. A lot of people have raised the alarm bell about this, and you're saying it's a property tax relief bill, but for some people, it's actually going to cause an increase, potentially. Maybe not, but it certainly does not have the effect of decreasing like this credit does. This credit is a direct relief. The PTRC, if that goes away, that has the opposite effect. I think the property tax code and local income tax code is so nuanced that they understand that there needs to be some fixes.
They could fix in the 20.
They could fix it in the short session here,
or the long one.
Or the long one, yeah, either one. We've heard that they're considering changes to local income tax. I don't know if it would be specific to PTRC or what that would be. I haven't seen any bills come out, but quite frankly, most of them were introduced yesterday. Some will be introduced tomorrow. They're coming out, and if you don't follow it very often, it's like a 300-page bill that gets dropped, and it's hard to follow all of them. So I'm sure we'll start to see more and more come out the next couple weeks. Lastly, referendum. I know you guys don't have one. What we tell schools is you're probably losing revenue because of Senate Enrolled Act 1. If there's no changes, you're at least tightening the belt. Most of our schools, especially rural schools, are no referendum schools. Just don't take it off the plate. Keep it as a potential consideration down the road, even if that's 10 years down the road. But ultimately, the big change here is that schools can only run a referendum in a general election now. So before you could go May or November every single year. Now it's November 26, 28, 30, so on and so forth. If you have charter schools, you just have to start sharing those revenues. But again, I want to put that on there just to make you aware if that ever comes as a possibility. There was a change to it, and there will likely continue to be changes, but I want to put it on there. I know it's not the forefront. Any questions? That's kind of like the overview of SCA1, which I know is a lot. Any questions on this one? All right. A lot of numbers. So this table is really just what we showed in the previous chart, just in a different format. $200,000. Again, you see the net assessed value. You see what the annual changes. Again, to your point, it's kind of 5 to 7% once you get out a handful of years, and it's a total decrease of 30%. That again is assuming that this number doesn't change. Likely that number changes from here to 2031. Historically, that number has increased. Of course, there's always a chance of a recession where that decreases and that farther drives down that net assessed value. So this does not factor in any market changes. It's just status quo today. Here's what the deductions are. For farmland, this same change applies, but this would also be for all 2% property. So again, apartments, rentals, senior living, and farmland. So the base rate of farmland, so 1 acre of farmland, is taxed currently in 2025 is $2,280. The gross assessed value was equivalent to the net assessed value. So no deductions, same thing. Beginning in 2026, they changed the formula, but you also get a 6% reduction. So now that net assessed value is $1,993. 2027, that deduction increases from 6% up to 12%. So if this farmland value doesn't move, now they're getting taxed on less. You work yourself all the way down. By 2031, if nothing changes, that farmland that was being taxed on $2,280 per acre is now at just over $1,400. So what does that mean for your net assessed value and your taxpayer? So down here at the bottom, 83% of your tax base is 1 and 2% properties. So it falls within this. 17% is 3%. They don't have the deductions, but they do have the business personal property. I'm not factoring that in. Quite frankly, each business is going to treat that vastly different, depending on when they want to renew equipment, how they want to treat the depreciation tables, all those sorts of things. So in 2025, your net assessed value was just under 900 million. Your levy or the revenue generated was 8.7 million. Tax rate was 97 cents. So the estimated taxpayer liability for just the school portion was $928. In 2026, your net assessed value actually grew. And that comes back to this. So even though you had these deductions in place of the 4% change in the homesteads and 6% in the net assessed value, the gross assessed value actually changed or increased, outpaced those deductions in 2026. So your net assessed value actually increased to $929.5 million. Your levy between your operations fund and your debt service increased to $9.6 million. The tax rate was $1.03 and some change, and the estimated taxpayer liability went from $928 to $950. But this does not factor in that homestead credit. So their gross liability from just the school portion went up $22. It's going to be significantly reduced because of that taxpayer credit. This is just looking at the school portion as well. So we knew 26, so I updated that. We have your 1782. 27 and beyond, we don't know what that is going to be in terms of does that gross assessed value growth outpace these deductions. So I'm going to assume that everything just stays the same. And let's just say that your revenue also stays equivalent to 2026 for this exercise, and bear with me here. So 83% of your tax base is going to start seeing these deductions. That AV drops from 929 to 886. Compound those deductions, goes to 840, so on and so forth until you get out to 2031 when those deductions bottom out. Now your net assessed value is $724 million. Your levy is the exact same. So we're going to assume that even in your operations fund, although costs are increasing just for this purpose, you're not taking any more dollars, any more revenue that is coming in whatsoever. Your tax rate goes from $1.03, $1.08, 14, 20, 26, up to $1.33. So historically, if your tax rate went from $1.03 to $1.33, you're probably going to start getting some phone calls. That means that the taxes went up, people are upset. But in all actuality, it's increasing by about the same portion as these deductions are taking place. So the taxpayer's bill decreases slightly. It stays actually fairly flat until that last year, and that's before those credits take place. So it would actually be slightly less than this, but just painting the picture of, and this is where I think it gets hard from a communication standpoint of, yes, our tax rate increased in 2027 or 2028, but we didn't bring in any new dollars. And your tax bill probably didn't go up either. And that's the hard part, because I think it was so easy for schools and all municipalities, cities, towns, libraries as well, to say, well, we didn't increase your tax rate. Maybe your assessed value changed, but we didn't increase our tax rate. Now the conversation has to change more about how much revenue are we bringing in, and ultimately, what does it mean to the taxpayer's bill? So it gets a little bit more difficult, or a little harder to explain it, rather than just saying, well, look at our tax rate. So again, let me pause there. Questions, comments?
And then the county has increased their income tax rate as well. And so whatever savings homeowners are getting because of property tax, their paychecks are now lower after the first of the year because they're getting more taken out from the county. So it seems like just a wash. Maybe it's just a wash. Maybe if they're not paying more overall.
Mm-hmm. A wash that became more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of schools are struggling with, because then you don't have control over what the county does, nor do they have control over what you do, but it does make it harder to explain for the average citizen. And you're right, there's so many, part of it was they let counties and other municipalities increase that local income tax, and most did because most municipalities said, hey, we're getting less in revenue in our property tax. Well, how do we make that up? Have a new income tax tool. We can increase the income tax, because cities, towns, counties have a lot more tools in their toolbox. Again, you have your local income tax, your TIF revenue, utilities, permit fees. You have state funding and property tax. So your state funding is tied to ADM and property tax. You're capped at by certain amounts. So you don't have that flexibility to just say, oh, we lost this revenue, we'll just increase it over here where other municipalities do. So best practices post SCA 1. I think first and foremost is, we've already talked about, the communication of it, of having the communication with boards, key stakeholders. If you have naysayers in your community, or positive people about your school district that take an interest in your finance, or just the school in general, talking to them about what the impact is of Senate Enrolled Act 1. When tax bills start coming out, if you have any people that have really been watching your tax rate over the next couple years, it's going to be a different conversation. And it may just be one person at a time, or maybe that's We've had some schools that what we call kind of putting out breadcrumbs on social media, like, did you know Senate Enrolled Act 1 does this? Or did you know property tax funds this? Did you know state funding funds this? And just kind of putting out some information out there. But ultimately, most schools are shifting away from a tax rate strategy to a tax levy strategy. So if you do decide to do that, and quite frankly, unless you can either increase that base tax rate a lot or cut a lot of expenses, I mean, that's what we'd recommend, is going to a tax levy strategy. And I don't think it's a bad thing. And quite honestly, it probably provides more transparency to the taxpayer of that, hey, we're focusing more on your bill versus just our part of it. It gets harder to explain though, especially to the average person. So we talked a lot about the operations fund, the homestead credit loss, especially if that increases because of the PTRC, or if circuit breaker increases because of that PTRC going away. So if you're getting less dollars in revenue, you're you don't have a lot of options to make up that revenue. So we always tell first and foremost is going through your operations fund expenditures, making sure you're as lean as absolutely possible. Most schools have already done that. Second thing is shifting capital expenditures from operations to debt service, just like we did with that GO bond. If you can't increase revenue to make that operations fund whole, to still make sure you can pay your staff, utilities, maintenance, insurance, buses, transportation, those types of things, well, then you need to start shifting some of those capital expenditures from operations to debt service. And that can be roofing, paving, carpet, buses, technology, any of those larger ticket capital items, chillers, boilers, and anything like that. Once you get through that, transferring additional dollars from education to operations. We all know you're capped at that 15%. That's really the only other way outside of a referendum to increase your revenue in the operations fund. That's a tough sell. You have your threshold with teacher pay in your education fund. And also, if you're taking dollars from the education fund to the operations fund, you're likely taking dollars out of the classroom, which is not, I mean, that's hard to do as a school corporation because you're all here to educate kids. So a lot of schools are transferring up to that 15%, getting as close as they possibly can because they're trying to keep that operations fund whole. If you can do it, you have those other mandates in the education fund, whether that's the 65% or teacher pay requirements. So you may not be able to, but that's really the only way to increase revenue in that operations fund. And lastly, which is no one wants to talk about or hear, is a potential operating referendum in the future. That's really the only other way to increase revenue. And I think you all know it's going out to your taxpayers and saying, we need X dollars annually to fund A, B, C, D. We vote yes or no. You get 50.1, you get the referendum for 8 years. No, it's dead, and you have to make cuts or do whatever you need to do to stay afloat. So typically, this is the last option. These two, after you go through and make sure you're as lean as possible in that operations fund, and really probably education as well, as these are kind of your two options. Transfer more dollars or shift expenditures from operations to debt. The other thing that I think SCA 1 forced us to do, I don't think it's a bad thing, is really start looking more long-term versus year to year. And a lot of schools are already doing it, but looking out over the next 5 to 10 years of what does it mean in your facility study? What other things do you have coming up? Do you have a chiller that needs to be replaced in 5 years? What about your roofs? I heard moisture management, their name come up. So you guys are obviously looking at your roofs. A lot of those deferred maintenance or preventative maintenance type needs that just come up when you have thousands of kids running throughout a district every single year or every single day. So getting some sort of facility study done, whether that's from outside professionals or whether that's done internally, and including all of those preventative maintenance type items, those non-sexy items that you just need to keep up with to run a school corporation. And then as you start to look at that list, how are you going to fund that? Do you still have room in the operations fund? If you do, that's great. If you don't, how do we pay for it out of bonds? And if we pay for it out of bonds, what does that mean to your taxpayer? And if we need to increase the levy or increase the rate, we also need to be cognizant of that 70-cent threshold, because at that point, any new authorization goes to referendum. Again, whether that's a $500,000 roof replacement or a $100 million high school, once you get over that, any new authorizations there. So it kind of forces us, and that's probably the one good thing that came from this, is a lot of schools, not saying you guys, we're only really looking 1 year at a time. Kind of forces you to look more 5-10 years out, and how do you plan for that stuff on the operations side, on the facility study side, on things that you know are going to need to come up. Now you just have to have a plan, because you have all these different thresholds that you cannot go above anymore. So once we kind of get that together, I mean, I think best practice, we've always done this with you all. It's just kind of an annual meeting with finance, legal, any policy changes, what are your needs coming up, and just review where you've been, what the plan was last year, what's changed, what do we need to adapt with new policy, what's changed in terms of construction, enrollment, all those types of things. Make those adjustments, update that plan, and just do that on an annual basis going forward. Last slide is just your current debt payments. You guys are kind of right around, I think it's about 5 million, 4.9 or so. Have a little bit of a dip here before they start to go back up. And that was all kind of planned with this 25 GO. So you will have some debt falling off when the payments reduce from 27 to 28. Did that knowing that, again, you're likely going to have ongoing maintenance, preventative maintenance type needs. This does give you the ability to kind of fill that in within your current levy, and do so to fund some of those smaller projects. But if you put together that 5-10 year plan, you may come back to us and say, this is not enough to fund what our needs are. So then it's working with your administration team and you all to say, how do we prioritize those, and how do we fund that accordingly, and what does that mean to the taxpayer? That's my last slide. I know it's a lot of information and real fun and riveting stuff too. So if it wasn't enough, there's like a 350-page bill that you can read on the IGA website. That's really exciting too.
Well, any questions? Any other questions for Luke?
Are we going to get copies of that?
Yes, I will send this out in my update for you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
If you guys have questions after the fact, reach out to Camden and Lindsay.
Yeah. And just for the board's awareness, so we are going to start Tiger Champions back up this spring semester. And Luke and I had a conversation about when we do the finance spotlight for that group of people, Steeple's willing to come in and have a conversation with them to try and explain it as plainly as possible, so that we can share that with advocates in our community. And we talked about a social media campaign, and just sharing little bits and pieces about the good things that we're doing with our money and where that money goes and how we're using it responsibly, to try and get that message out before we get to the point where we're going to see that tax rate increase, so that our community is not surprised and they understand how we're using the property tax dollars we get.
There's so much to that. It's going to be hard to give like a one-pager to your community. It's going to be tough.
I think what we've done in some other places that have that corporation academy is have maybe not a full day, but like a half day or a morning, or a couple hours where we go through something like that. And it can even be, I think a lot of people outside of schools don't understand what all goes into school finance. And the different buckets. A lot of people think it's just one pot of money and you do whatever you can. But instead of doing that project, you could pay teachers more, vice versa. So even educating and taking on What is the education fund? Where does that revenue come from? What are you allowed to do with that? Same thing with operations and debt service, just so they're educated and then all of that starts to kind of tie together.
Okay. Anything else to add, Camden? Okay.
All right.
All right. Ted, how you doing over there?
Doing fine.
Good. Very good. Very good. That was a lot. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to add to that. So
Do we need a motion to adjourn? Or do we just close it?
we can just close it out since it's not a formal meeting.
All right, we can go home now.
All right. Thank you.